Aquatics. I'm Tom. We've got a really fun video today that I'm really looking forward to making. Behind me here, you've definitely already noticed, this is a 120 litre, which is give or take about 30 gallons for our US friends. It's a naturalistic setup which has been, until now, a platy breeder tank. The platies are just doing their thing. They've been breeding away for the last few years. But in the process, the tank has got quite overgrown. As you can see, the plants have kind of taken over, which is great and it looks fantastic. But it's just looking a bit flat. There's not an awful lot of swim room. And because the plants have grown so much, it's quite a bit of upkeep now, cutting the plants back every so often. This tank has got quite the snail, I don't want to say problem, but there's quite a snail population here at the minute. And the owner quite likes the snails, but we definitely want to cut back on them a fair bit. So I'm going to take out about 50% of the snails we find here today and completely rescape this tank. So we're going to try and maintain the naturalistic setup of this tank as much as we can. The owner wants to keep the substrate. I don't blame them. They've got a fantastic ecosystem going here, and that substrate is definitely doing well for the plants, so there's no need to get rid of that just yet. We're going to reuse a lot of the plants that are already in here, plus, I don't know how well you can see it on camera now, but there's a few pieces of slate. I'm counting 4 or 5 pieces of slate ready in here we're going to reuse. I've bought a few more pieces of slate just to bulk it out slightly. And we've got some nice long pieces of red wood that we're going to use to simulate sort of growth across the tank. So I need to get all the platies out of this tank with a net, which is definitely going to be easier said than done. And I've got a plastic tub set off to the side, which has got an air stone, which isn't running at the minute for filming, but it will be. Just to give the fish a nice home for the next few hours while I work on this tank. But first of all, let's have a little cinematic of how this tank currently looks. So I've got out as many platies as I can. I know for a fact there's 2 left in here, and I reckon there might be a couple more hiding. But they're not going to come out voluntarily. So I'm going to drop the water down a fair bit now, start taking out some of the plants very carefully, and as I can catch these platies, I will catch these platies. I'm certainly not going to work around them, so I will get them out. Very carefully. So the tank's drained down about halfway now. There are still a few platies in here I've not caught yet, but they're going to be much easier once the plants start coming out. I filled up a large water container, so we are going to put the water back into this tank. I've tested the parameters and the water in here is actually really well balanced, so the water's going to go back into this aquarium. And I've also filled up a large bucket which we're going to put all the plants into, just so they don't dry out during this process, as it might take a couple of hours. The platies, I don't know if you can see them, they're right at the front mocking me. I need to be careful at this stage not to sort of dislodge the substrate too much, because if this goes really murky it's going to be hard to see the platies, but we'll get them out. This here looks to me like a very small Java fern, which doesn't look too great. But I'm going to try working back into the next scape when we redo it. So you can see the water's getting pretty murky now. I'm just slowly working my way front to back, getting all the plants out. I'm 99% sure that I've got all the platies out. The only risk we have is maybe a few fry, which I will do my absolute best to get out, but sometimes it isn't so easy. But they've got some pretty healthy looking plants in this tank. They've got lots of green, which is probably what you saw initially in the cinematic footage, but they've got some pretty darker leafed plants. I'm not very good at the ID straight off my head, but see, these were overlooked in that tank, and there's quite a few of them. So I'm definitely going to save these plants to work into the new aquascape. I think, like I say, they'll give a lovely texture against the other leaves that are sort of more straight and grass-like. These will give a bit of depth. That looks like another pretty sad Java fern. You're not necessarily meant to bury the roots of these guys, but I think we can bring him back. This is the main plant we've got in this tank. Like I say, I'm not fantastic at plant IDs straight off the top of my head, so I'm not entirely sure what it is, but it's very grass-like, very long, very straight, and it sends off runners. And some of these are literally the full length of the tank. I think they were probably initially put in as background plants, but they've sort of taken over now. These long plants growing in the front is why this tank looks so overgrown. So we're going to work some of those back into the scape, but we're going to be more careful this time to maintain them as a background plant and not let them sort of take over. These are the rocks that were in this aquarium. You can see there's a lot of moss growing on them, but I quite like that. It gives quite an aged look. I thought they were slate initially, but now they don't look like it. So I'm not entirely sure what they are, but they've got a fantastic slime to them with all the algae and all the bacteria, which is fantastic. We need to be really careful with this aquarium not to sort of shock it and reset the cycle. These little guys are ram's horn snails. Ram's horn snails are usually a pest that you introduce when you introduce new plants and whatnot. They quite easily lay transparent eggs on the back of leaves and whatnot, so you don't even realise you're doing it. But these little guys do come in some very cool colours and different varieties. You get the blues, the pinks, the reds, and they can be a nice feature. We're going to introduce some of them back into this tank, but we are going to hugely reduce population, probably about 30 or 40% of what was initially in here. So now that the plants are out, only took me 45 minutes. We're getting somewhere. I've just dug up what was once upon a time a nearite snail. Now he's very much empty, but nearites are also quite good at keeping algae at bay. Only thing to be aware of with these guys, I find, that they can drop white eggs over everything. I've seen full bogwood logs absolutely plastered in white eggs from nearite snails, and they don't even hatch. So it's kind of a lose-lose really, and I'm not sure why my hand's still in the aquarium. The person that set the tank up has admitted to me that they were trying to cut down costs when they were doing so. Which is fine, understandable, absolutely understandable. Initially this tank was like a fairly bright white gravel. And so instead of doing all sand, they sort of mounded the gravel to the middle and put sand over the top, which is absolutely fine. And in fact keeps all that good bacteria from the gravel initially. But that means when I stir this up now, bits of gravel are going to come through. So what I'm going to do is deliberately stir it up, incorporate it all so it looks more deliberate. It might look not particularly natural, but I think mixing it thoroughly will give a better effect than having the odd bits of gravel here and there. in an ideal world, you probably want to change the substrate. In an ideal world, you'll probably want a actual plant substrate like fluval stratum or something similar. Something with a lot of fertiliser and stuff for the plants to thrive. But these plants seem to be doing really well in this, so I don't think any real need to change it. I also think the sand with the sort of slate rock we're going to put in is going to give a nice effect. I think a lighter substrate for a darker rock, I think, would look a nice contrast. I think it'll look good. Okay, we're an hour and a half in, and the tank is as drained as I think it's going to be. You can now see algae in place that we hadn't before because the substrate levels changed, but I can now get in there with a sponge and clean that back. Little filter needs to come out, don't need that now. Sponge needs to come out, don't need that now. The big filter I'm just going to push up and work around because that's probably packed full of water and that'll make a real mess. Still got a few more roots I can see I'm going to pick out, and then it gets to scaping and it gets really fun. Another sort of half hour and we should start to see the shape that we're going to be looking at. So this is the main piece of wood we're going to work into this scape. It's a really nice long piece of Redmore wood. I just like the sort of the definition, the length of it, all the different branches coming off, and I've got a smaller piece as well that we're going to break more branches from to sort of build more nooks and crannies for the fish to swim through. I was looking for quite a few weeks for a long piece to sort of come across the scape, and I saw this in one of our local aquatic stores, and it is just absolutely perfect for what we're looking at. Now, I'm not too sure which way up I'm going to have it, so I'm going to play around with it now and just see what looks good. The camera stopped recording, but you've not missed masses. I've finished planting the tank. Now all the plants in here are plants that were already in here. I need to come back because we've decided on doing a carpeting plant, something like Monte Carlo or dwarf crabgrass, something like that. And we've decided that today, so I don't have any with me. But that's fine, we can come back in a few weeks and we'll do the carpeting plants. I look forward to seeing this in a few weeks because it's now, like, it's an established tank, but it's a new setup, so it's not matured yet. When it matures, this tank is going to look fantastic, and I'm genuinely excited to see it. But you don't want to sit here and watch a tank fill up. That's my job. So with the power of movie magic, here is a cinematic sequence of this finished aquascape. So ladies and gents, it's a week later, the tank's looking fantastic, so healthy. The water parameters are exactly where they need to be, so I'm glad we've not sort of shocked any of the beneficial bacteria, but no, everything seems good in here. As I've come back, we've just introduced 7 guppies, 2 male, 5 female. So we should start to see some good breeding action in this tank over the next few months. Yeah, it's looking good. I probably won't attend this tank again now until probably the far side of Christmas. Just to sort of make sure the moss is attached properly and take the thread off. And there's a large rock holding down some of the logs that haven't sunk yet, which I will remove. But to be fair, with that rock, when the plants grow up, you won't even notice it. in a couple of weeks' time it's going to bed in a bit better, and I'm looking forward to receiving pictures of it because it's been a really fun project. I've really enjoyed it, the customer's happy, that's the main thing, and I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments down below. Subscribe to get notified when there's more videos. We're going into another national lockdown, so I don't know when the next video will be. There's not too much I can really do videos on from home, but I'll do my best for you. I will do my best. But head on over to the Facebook page, drop us a like, drop us a follow. I will be posting regularly on there all the way through the next lockdown, as much information as I can. Until next time, stay safe out there and I'll see you soon.